Lecture me, cowboy.
And we're live. Good afternoon, good evening, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good whatever. It's V, the Real Economist. It's another day, folks. Another day. It's Watch Us Trade, Visual Trading Thursday, and episode 2, Market Structure, baby. Episode 2, Market Structure. Folks, if you haven't got a chance, go to the website, which is, wow, what is going on?
WatchUsTrade.io.
WatchUsTrade.io.
Our new website.
WatchUsTrade.io. And the YouTube link is in the description box. So go check it out. WatchUsTrade.io.
Yeah, we got to thank people. They've given us a bunch of likes the last week since we've been asking, and we really appreciate that. As we told you, we want to put our shows on a separate channel called Watch Us Trade. And we've got 3 shows a week that we're doing, plus some other stuff. And we want to get that new YouTube up and running. So thanks so much for everybody who's gone over and subscribed and liked those videos. It's really, really helpful for us. And it's sort of speeding us along. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And today, this is Frank, by the way, everybody. Today is Visual Trading Thursday, episode 2, Market Structure. And we've got our main man, Cowboy, here to teach us a little bit. And for those of you who are new, I mean, we're all new because this is only episode 2. Our Thursday show is really focused on learning the tricks of the trade. And so, pun intended. Get it? Tricks. Never mind.
Tricks. Yeah.
So, and what we're doing last week, we looked at the RSI indicator and we had a great discussion about that. Today, we're going to look at market structure, basically focusing on support and resistance. And for some of you, that may sound like old hat, but I find whenever I talk to Cowboy about these things, he always has great insights for us. So if you want to learn more about what a professional trader does, of course, as Cowboy always says, none of this is financial advice. In fact, this is just teaching. We're teaching you some skills here, teaching you how to look at charts so you could do your own research and have some freedom to make your own decisions. Of course, if you want to watch what the pros are doing, you go to watchustrade.io and get in our chat room where you can watch their every move. These guys are posting constantly. That we have a special little chat right in there that everybody has access to, where you can request chart readings. There's places where you can ask questions, and of course, they're constantly posting their current trades that they're in, that they're getting into, posting their stop losses, posting their entry points, posting their thoughts about the trade, their chart to show the logic behind the trade, so you can go and do your own research and see if you want to get involved in it. Very awesome service that we're providing there at watchustrade.io. Without further ado, though, I think my dude, the Cowboy, is just about ready to talk about market structure. So what are we looking at? We have a ZRX chart here.
Correct. Yes, we have a ZRX chart.
Which one is ZRX?
ZRX 0X. That's one of the ones I think that was added to Coinbase a few months ago.
Oh, cool.
Hence these big green.
But what's it like called? What's the name?
0X.
Oh, it's just called 0X?
Well, it's the number 0 and X. So I don't know if to call it OX or,
Right.
ZX, or I bet you ZX is probably said elsewhere, but I think it's 0.
Cool.
So, but yeah, supports, market structure, right? So structure is another word. Supports and resistances are like part of structure. That's kind of the way I look at that. I mean, that's the way it is. I don't look at it any other way. But when you're looking at a tradable asset, market participants, they buy and sell at like certain times. So, a lot of it when they buy and sell has to do with when they bought and sold before. So when people bought and sold before, they create like a benchmark for themselves where it's like, okay, I'm starting here and I'm going to take profit at this point, which usually occurs at these natural points called Fibonacci levels, Fibonacci points. And, people say different things for that, but and we can look at that today because that actually plays into market structure. Fibonacci is key there.
Right.
But when it comes to supports and resistances, supports are a price where it supports the price. I know it's kind of a silly, obvious thing to say, but if the price is falling and it runs into a support, that's a place where a lot of people want to buy.
Right.
Because maybe they bought before, or, there might be a lot of reasons. So price discovery occurs in certain areas, and in the areas where price discovery occurs, you get market structure. One way to look at that, first of all, price discovery is where buyers and sellers kind of agree on the price for a little bit. And you'll notice that in consolidation areas like here, here for a while, you saw it there, and maybe, you know, on the shorter time frames, it might be easier to see for like shorter time frame stuff.
Right.
But in the long term, where you
And
have,
that's where, just to clarify, that's where it's sort of bouncing around in a range.
that's literally what that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the perfect way to put that. So the way I like to look at that is the volume range, volume
Which
profile.
we've had with Bitcoin for several weeks now, correct? I mean, it seems to be about $6,500 every day for what feels like forever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's huge.
Yeah.
And so a way to do that is, you know, if a lot of trading goes on at a certain price, then you're going to have a lot of volume at that price. So this chart on the right is volume over time, and you see there's like a long bar right there. So if I were just to drop a line where that bar is, you can see this big red line that's called the point of control. That's where most of the trading has occurred in the history of this coin, as per.
Oh, wow,
this
interesting.
exchange. Yeah, so that's where like the point of control is the hardest support slash resistance. It's the firmest structure on whatever graph or whatever chart is represented graphically in front of us.
How do you find that? It's with all the stuff we've talked about, I've never heard this point of control before. How do you find the point of control? I mean, I understand that it's another support or resistance, but how do you find the point of control? It sounds so
control. You got to count to 10 when you're going to lose your temper and you find your point of control.
A slightly better point of control than I did.
Yeah, he had a slightly better point of control than I did.
That's it. It's going on my movies to watch that I probably shouldn't watch list.
Oh, you haven't seen the American Psycho?
No, I've seen clips. You know, I'm familiar with the character, but I still haven't seen the movie.
Oh yeah, no, he's compared himself to people that he had a slightly better haircut than me.
You got the lip. I can see your lips doing it. It's so good.
That's disturbing somehow.
Hey, by the way, hey, let me interrupt really quick. We've got in the chat room, Mina Bear says, I just got in the group today looking good. That's awesome. Thanks, man. We're so glad to have you. Or lady.
Yeah. We actually have a lot of ladies in the room. You know, it's easy to think it's going to be dudes. Especially like, you know, Rogue Money's pretty testosterone fueled, but you know, we're getting people from a lot of different places.
Love the ape though.
All the ladies love the ape, that's for sure. That's absolutely true.
I'm a dude, LOL.
So the point of control is just automatically when you use the VPVR, which is the volume profile visible range indicator. So volume is on the bottom here. That's in relation to time. So say March, May, July. So during these periods of time, when you see like a big spike up, if it's green, that's buyer volume. If it's red, that would be seller volume. And without getting too far into what that indicator is and how it works, this is actually volume in relation to price, right? So every chart has an x-axis on the bottom and a y-axis on the right, if you're using our Cartesian 2D chart. So when you have volume on the right, it's going to be in relation to what is on the y-axis, which is price. So like when the volume was at this price, it was traded more often than any other price on this chart. So that's how the point of control is determined by this volume range, the volume profile
on the side there.
So, and then I did kind of line out
too, because you didn't always have that. I've noticed that for a while. You've had that on the right there.
I use it a lot more than I used to. It's not every indicator that I use is like, you know, nothing is gospel, right? Like I use market structure, volume range, or volume profile, RSI, the relative strength index that we talked about last week. I use MACD. I like the histogram a lot.
Sorry, it just sounds like a rapper.
What?
MACD.
MACD.
So just to not to throw you off, but so this indicator, what's it called? The blue and yellow one?
Okay, and you can make those any colors you want, but it's the volume profile visible range, I believe. VP.
And each one points at a prior. It's showing the point at which most trades have taken place.
Correct. And it doesn't point at supports per se, but what it does point at are areas that are most likely to be a support or resistance, or just we'll call it a structure point.
So pretty helpful in finding your support and resistance.
Yeah, very helpful. I use it all the time. But here's the thing, and this is okay. So my advice I ever give is do your own research. To actually learn how to use volume profile properly, I watched about 4 YouTube videos, and I backed it up with like your more official Investopedia type stuff. So that because people teach things wrong, I'm sure I've taught things wrong once in a while. I hope not, but basically I mean, even with volume profile, I think through 3 videos, I found out where 2 of them were incorrect in some way, shape, or form. So I don't want to get too far into volume profile, but what I will say is that, these bars right here are where you can depend on for a lot of price action to have happened in the past. And that can be used to help determine support or resistance.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it. It's very helpful.
Now, here's the thing, though, about this indicator. The last thing I'll because I don't want to take too much time on this from the show, but
Sure.
when you change your, now we're on the hourly chart. So before, each of these bars, they're hard to see right now, but each of these single bars was a day's worth of action. Now each of these single bars is an hour's worth of action, and you'll notice. Well, you notice the RX is taking a dump, but on the hourly.
Yeah.
But and we'll talk about that right here. In fact, we'll kind of use this. So if you look on the kind of up close, right? When you change the chart to represent a short amount of time, then the volume profile only represents the time on the chart. So this will change.
Mhm.
It's only reading everything that you can see. That's why you have a decent
Interesting.
support, and it just broke through that decent support. Now, another way to look at supports is like right here where buyer pressure kicked in. So it might bounce off of that, but right now it's actually in a downward channel, and I would not count on that. I would actually count on more downward to eventually break through. You might pull back and then come down. But the point there is once I move this, that what used to look like a support does not look like a support anymore. And as a matter of fact, what you have is this right here, which will act as a resistance that is above what was an apparent support. So be very wary of
Down.
these indicators.
So we broke down from that support, which is bad.
Well, so
It's
at some
really bad.
point, probably due to a Fibonacci reason. Oh no, look at this. Okay, so if we go back into history,
Mhm.
and my indicator calms down, we're gonna go out to the 4-hour.
Just tell your indicator to relax.
Yeah, relax. Well, you can actually do this right here. Inputs, we'll say 85. So yeah, you see, you can kind of form it up. So what's happened is right now it is traveling along a bit of a support, and you can tell because the VPVR comes out a little bit right here. That's part of it, but I look for contact points. I look for action around zones, and you can see that there is price action around this area. It actually sort of bounced off here, bounced off there, was rejected. It's, in my opinion, a relatively weak support. But what I do see on a longer term is a stronger support. And if it were to bounce, and there are many other ways that I would look at as far as like whether or not something is going to bounce. But if you look at the current point of control, so where my chart is right now, what I'm drawing is this right here and all of this play right here. And then if I were to just go a little bit over here, there's a heavy bounce right off of this support right here. Like the candles couldn't even make it through. And I bet you if we go back farther in history, and we might even find more action here. So it bounced off of here and went up pretty high. And then it violated that support. And
Mhm.
once it violated that support, the support actually began to act as a resistance a little bit.
Mhm.
And then it actually went back up, and then it came back down and acted as a support again. It's kind of a rough area, right? It's not this exact line. In fact, I might put it a little bit lower, but long story short, this is how these areas act. They act as either a support or resistance depending on what side you are.
Mhm.
So, like here, it didn't quite make it up there, but bounced off and got rejected right there. Came back up and actually bounced. This one a little bit lower, but it bounced basically 3 times and went up high. So now what we're doing is if that support continues to be the support, then, we will probably break through where this is. We may not. There is, according to the volume profile, and a couple of minor bounces there's action here. But if we were to look at other indicators, we may or may not be able to read that it's going to come up or down from here, right? It's hard to say what it's going to do.
You counting wicks or bodies?
I count wicks.
I know people have differ on that.
Well, okay. So in trading, there are rules, and in trading, there are probabilities. So for me, I will consider wicks. That's one of the gray areas for me right now. I used to count them only, and then I started to not count them. Not counting them in many cases seem to be more conservative, but their wicks are really important. I mean, counting them is like, that's some terminology. Let's just say that, like, if I was going to measure something, do I always measure by the wick? Lately, I do. That's like, if you look at this is a really good example of why I might look at a wick instead of not. So you have these basically three bounces right here. This one, the one in the middle didn't quite make it down, but we have right here, right there. Now on this part, there was a little bit of a flash dump. Well, I want to call it a flash crash, but it was a very fast, within 4 hours, it came all the way down, all the way back up. And if I was like panicking, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like, and I was looking for a place to sell or not, I could look back here and see that there was a structure low. We'll call this a local structure low right here. And price respected it. So it's like, okay, if it breaks this structure low, then we're probably in trouble because there's no other local structure low anywhere near.
Yeah.
So then I might set my stop loss like down here.
Yeah.
And if I'd done that, then I would have had the opportunity once it came back up to maybe just sell up here instead of selling at the bottom.
And just to stop there, and kind of reflect on the value of this, because we're looking at the technical, what it is, but something you just said there, if it was going to break below that, what for me is a green line that you drew just now, if it was going to break below that, that is likely indicating to the trader that you're in bad territory. For example, if you look to the right a little bit, it does break below it, and what happens? It goes sailing on down.
Well, yeah.
So that's where this support and resistance becomes very practical. It gives you an insight into likelihoods or possibilities.
Well, and if you look at, a lot of people look at zones, and I've been using zones lately, like clusters instead of strict lines. And if you look at this, like, you see this cluster of volume right there.
Yeah.
So you could sort of, I don't know if you can see it on the screen because sometimes it's hard to see, but the way my crosshairs are, they have lines coming from either side, right? I don't know if you see that, but so I line that up down here at the bottom and at the top of this, and then I draw a box.
So that's even better than just looking for a line.
It can be, because people like to play clusters. If you do the average, you'll find, and if I were just to thicken these bars up, you'll find that most of the price action happened in this area. And so what happened is what you were talking about, where we crashed through this local support right there, which was like the bottom of this zone. Once we crashed through, it actually came back up and it tested this cluster on the way.
Wow.
So you'll commonly see that in trending markets, where something will go down and it'll come back up. It doesn't always make it all the way back up to test. But if you're sort of thinking of a place to enter, if you're going to go short on something, which, we don't really do leverage stuff at the Watch Us Trade, but a lot of people do. And if I was looking to go short and I saw all this going on, I saw there was a downward trend, I saw that the structure got violated, I saw that we were heading back up. And basically I would think, oh, well, we actually passed that structure, but it was a recent violation. So I'm not as concerned on a downward trend, but I do know there's a solid cluster up here. Like, oh, should I go long? I look at all the factors. I look at the most profitable place to go long, and it's when it's going to reject most likely that cluster.
What's the difference between a cluster and a channel? Is it size? Is it clarity?
No, a cluster and a channel are two different things. Okay. A cluster can occur in a channel, but a channel is going to be like, you draw trend lines and you find that price stays
tops and bottoms,
a range. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be a diagonal range. It could be like a left and right range. Like, this is like a pretty decent channel right here, sort of like down this way. You can, channels are a bit subjective. You have to understand how to kind of see them. This channel's all right. It deviated a little bit. It had this moment, but that's sort of a channel right there.
Right.
You know, but a cluster is generally with relation to structure, and structure is a lateral thing. It doesn't really go diagonal. Usually,
Gotcha.
you can see ascending trend lines act as a support, and one could argue that's a form of structure, but I wouldn't necessarily use that terminology.
Okay.
I don't want to get too far off into
Yeah, no, don't want to confuse it. All right, so this is helpful. So we've been talking for a few minutes. Probably want to wrap it up soon. You want to give us a couple of tips on how to use this, where it becomes practical, closing thoughts, however you want to wrap it up.
Well, yeah, I would start at the beginning with this. Like, so structure is where a lot of trading happens, right? So it always will give you an idea of what's happening, what could happen, what probabilities are. So for example, like when we're playing in this area, you know, this sort of structure, you know, there's going to be some type of structure. You might want to, you know, I might like shoot out some lines. Okay, well, you know, this is where a lot of points occurred right here. You know, you have this bounce right there. This came close to there. There's this, there's that. So when you have that, if it bounced off of something numerous times, then when you're trying to predict where price is going to go, anytime you can have an idea of where price is going to go, then that's how money is made in trading. And
Right.
one of, you know, so prediction is the key there. And so in order to predict something, structure is going to give you an idea of where it might bounce in either direction. It might bounce or it might reject from the bottom.
So it's going to show you a good place to buy. It's going to show you a good place to put your stop loss, which would be slightly below the structure.
Yeah.
It's going to show you a good place to start maybe taking some profit or doing trailing stops in terms of higher areas of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really going to help you plan out any trades that you're going to take.
I'd say supports and resistances might be like, I mean, people who can trade based on that and nothing else have a better chance. I would never recommend that, but I'd say
if you got one tool, it's not a bad one. Not that you'd recommend it.
Yeah, you start at Desert Island and you have like 3 tools, and that's one of them.
All right, very cool.
And the other's a knife and a rope, and then
some duct tape, blowtorch. Yeah, right.
Wait a minute.
Get medieval on your chart.
You're alone on the Desert Island. Alone.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we were. Never mind.
No. By Desert Island,
slightly better Desert Island than me.
Layer.
Very cool. Well, that was very helpful, Cowboy. I really like these shows. I feel like I'm like really learning stuff. You know what? You really clarified something for me too. I think I don't know if I've always done this, but while you were talking, it kind of like the difference between a trend line and support and resistance became really clear to me. I think I knew that, but at the same time, something in my brain was kind of conflating the two a little bit. So that's pretty helpful.
And the reason it could be conflatable is one, and I'll make this quick, you can treat a trend line as a support.
Sure.
You know, so as something like Digibyte kind of goes up along a relatively steady clip, you know, you can sort of draw like a, you know, this isn't the best example.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, so that's not, I mean, this will act as a support. Things will bounce off it continuously.
Right. So it's sort of a different kind of support.
Well, I mean, I would say it's an underlying distortion of value, whether it's in a positive direction or not.
That's what I was going to say. No, I'm kidding.
Or evolution of value, but yeah.
You sure do use big words, mister.
Yeah, it's yeah. The bottom is getting higher over time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you got per teeth. Awesome. Well, this is another great watching. What is this called? Visual Trading Thursday.
Yes, Visual Trading Thursday.
Episode 2, Market Structure. This is very good. So thank you so much, Cowboy. And thanks everybody for listening, for watching. We're excited to have you. Of course, you get to see what this man and another great man, Mr. Crypto Nikos, known as Z, does in watchustrade.io. And we've got, and folks, I've said this a lot, people. When we say watch us trade, we're talking about a chat room, okay? no streaming video of these guys trading in their underwear. Okay, they've got the dream job. They get to work in their underwear whenever they want. So, but we do a lot of videos. We try to help you learn a lot from our videos. So go to watchustrade.io. We also do continue to ask everybody, check the link in the description if you're watching this on Rogue News. We have a new YouTube channel where we're reposting all these videos, and eventually we're going to start streaming from that channel. So before you know it, you're only gonna get alerts from us streaming directly from the Watch Us Trade YouTube. So please head over there and like that new channel or subscribe to that new channel so you see it in the future. And by the way, Cowboy, I want to let you know you're getting a lot of love in the chat room today. People really appreciate these videos. Very helpful. So,
Nice. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, people are enjoying them.
That's I'm glad they love them, and we
Yeah.
do like to hear suggestions. I know every so often polls get sent out. So if you're, in the room, then we will send out, hey, what do you think we could do better?
Yeah.
A lot of the changes and a lot of the changes in these shows and the room came from that. So
yeah, and I'll say this is just I've got no scientific facts to back this up, but my gut is saying that people are getting excited about cryptos again. And so it's a great time to be in a room like ours where you could see what the masters are tapped into. So definitely watchustrade.io. We'd love to have you as part of the Watch Us Trade room, the what room as we call it, WTUT.
What?
What? So V, thanks for hosting us here, man.
Yes, it is a pleasure of mine. Yes, it's a pleasure. Yes, thank you.
So
yes.
we're done.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening in. Again, go to watchustrade.io, watchustrade.io. Make it happen for yourself. Don't get a job at the perfume counter. Go to watchustrade.io and make it happen for yourself. With that being said, we're over and out. Take it away, V.